Good Tuesday morning to you, and thanks for joining us here on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. New this morning, communities in Hawaii are getting to higher ground as new downpours are leading to flooding in Honolulu. The worst flooding to hit Hawaii in 2 decades swept homes off of their foundations, floated cars out of driveways, and left floors, walls, and counters covered in thick, reddish volcanic mud. Crews are continuing to assess the destruction Monday, but new downpours set off a fresh round of flooding on Oahu's south side. This as residents on the island's north shore cleaned up and assessed the destruction from last week's storm. Authorities said hundreds of homes have been damaged, along with some schools and a hospital. No deaths have been reported, but more than 230 people had to be rescued. Governor Josh Green said that it could cost upwards of $1 billion. Well, with the Homeland Security shutdown now stretching over a month, more TSA agents are not getting paid, are calling out or quitting. That's causing airport security lines to reach new lengths. But there are new signs of hope from Congress and the White House. We have team coverage this morning, including the impacts here at home. But first, let's get to NBC's Alice Barr.
Overnight, a potential breakthrough to break up those massively long airport security lines after a small group of Senate Republicans met with President Trump on a plan to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Alabama Senator Katie Britt saying a solution may be at hand.
I am going to be working through the night, would be my guess. So hopefully we can figure out how to end this plan.
For more than a month, Democrats have refused to put more money into ICE and Border Patrol without major changes to immigration enforcement operations following the fatal shootings of 2 American citizens. They're pushing to separate that money from the rest of DHS to fund agencies like FEMA and TSA now.
All Donald Trump has to say is yes.
President Trump has been pressuring Republicans to tie DHS funding to stiffer voter ID laws under the Save America Act.
Don't make any deal on anything unless you include voter ID.
That's a non-starter for Democrats, and now overnight, the Senate's top Democrats saying
both sides are talking.
the pressure is mounting, with security lines growing by the day as TSA agents working without pay yet again quit and call out in record numbers.
You couldn't find the end of the line because there was just people everywhere.
And now at more than a dozen of the nation's busiest airports, ICE agents coming in for backup security, checking IDs and handling crowd control, according to a senior ICE official. But without training on airport X-ray machines, it's unclear how much they can do to clear the lines and the growing frustration. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Fortunately, things aren't too bad here at MSP yet. The wait times are still under half hour, and you can see from the baggage claim directory behind me, all the flights are still on time. Obviously not the case at other airports across the country where they're seeing TSA lines over 4 hours. President Trump brought ICE agents in to assist as unpaid TSA workers have stopped showing up. Now, President Trump says if the situation continues, he's willing to call in even more reinforcements. Take a listen.
They'll do great. And if that's not enough, I'll bring in the National Guard.
So far, no ICE agents have been seen here at MSP, and we can see, again, flights remain on time. And this was really the case for much of the historic shutdown from last fall. During those 43 days, MSP reported minimal disruptions, and it wasn't until the FAA started reducing flights nationwide that we started seeing more impacts. That was closer to the beginning of November, and then the shutdown ended just days later. Now, obviously, we're not there yet, but President Trump has indicated that he doesn't want Republicans to make a deal with Democrats to fund DHS until any consensus that they come to includes voter ID laws. So we'll see how long this situation could last. But again, things are still running fairly smoothly here at MSP. Back to you.
This morning, state lawmakers are taking a close look at huge amounts of cash literally flying out of MSP Airport. Those lawmakers saying some of it's tied to fraud in state programs. Fraud Committee Chair Kristen Robbins says $700 million in cash has been packed in luggage and flown overseas from MSP Airport in the last 2 years. Robbins says she thinks a significant portion of that money is laundered from defrauding taxpayer-funded programs in Minnesota. A former TSA agent testified she was suspicious of the suitcases full of money.
For context, we have the 16th largest airport. That number, $350 million, leaving our airport in cash, is higher than the cash leaving any other airport in the country, including much larger airports, JFK, LAX.
DFL lawmakers from the committee were frustrated because this is a federal issue overseen by the Treasury Department and Homeland Security. And if it involves fraud, it would be up to those officials to investigate and pursue charges. New video today showing the destruction in Israel after new strikes from Iran. Some were shot down, but others did strike several buildings in Tel Aviv. Drone video from today shows the extent of the damage to the residential buildings that were hit. According to local reports, 3 buildings were heavily damaged while several cars were wrecked. As of Tuesday morning, there were no official reports of casualties in these strikes, but the Israeli army said search and rescue forces were deployed to several areas in the central part of the country to look for victims. The state fire marshal says they're going to share new details today about the house fire that killed NHL reporter Jessie Pierce and her 3 kids. Megan McPherson's at the live desk with where this investigation stands.
Yeah, investigators from several fire departments back at the home of Jessie Pierce Monday. You can see here the growing memorial that has popped up on her front lawn and in her driveway. White Bear Lake officials emphasize the investigation is still in its early stages and the cause has not yet been determined. But early findings show no signs the fire was intentionally set. In a statement, the department says they are doing everything we can to find out what led to this tragedy alongside the state fire marshal's office. They add more information will be released once the investigation is complete. In the Minnesota Wild, also speaking after Monday's practice, several players reflecting on their personal connections to Pierce, saying that her presence around the rink will be deeply missed. Back to you.
Today, a group of Minneapolis residents are planning to announce a hunger strike to close the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center. This is video of the incinerator, which burns hundreds of thousands of tons of garbage to power 25,000 homes and half of the buildings in downtown. It's a system many community members believe is harming their health. Starting at 12:30, the Zero Burn Coalition will demand the Hennepin County Board sets a firm closure date. Over a year ago, the Minneapolis City Council unanimously voted to close the incinerator by December 31st, 2027. We're learning new details this morning about a crash that left 5 people dead in southern Minnesota. An SUV and a van carrying 13 people collided head-on in Cottonwood County on Friday. State Patrol says the 67-year-old SUV driver did not have a valid license. Troopers also say the van did not have seatbelts for passengers. The state's largest school district is now starting to cut 75 staff members as Anoka Hennepin is trying to write a nearly $6 million budget deficit next year. Parents sounding off at last night's school board meeting, particularly upset about 24 social workers that are going to be eliminated. The board also held a special meeting to start planning for a new superintendent. Corey McIntyre announced that he's leaving in June. There are 21 other districts with openings across the state, and turnover rate is increasing.
You know, you saw during the pandemic leaders step away from the job because it was a different kind of public stress and pressure. At the same time, we're trying to get better results and being held accountable with fewer resources.
Other districts with superintendent openings include Hopkins, Forest Lake, and Northfield. An update this morning in the war in Iran. Iran says it never had peace talks with the White House. The country's foreign minister says President Trump lied about the conversation to manipulate the financial and oil markets. Now, just yesterday, Trump told reporters Iran wants to make a deal to end the war. However, the White House has not confirmed who the Trump administration held discussions with. Well, this morning, Trader Joe's is expanding the recall of one of its popular items. Take a look. The grocery chain is now recalling over 9 million pounds of its frozen fried rice due to potential pieces of glass. The impacted products were sold in 43 states, including Minnesota and Wisconsin. If you have any of these, you're asked to throw it away or return it for a refund. All right, stick with us. More news and weather is coming up after the break.